Think of your favorite comic book hero. Now think of their rogues gallery, their villains, the guys that give a reason for your hero to exist in the first place. What is it that makes these fictitious monsters, criminals, and evil tyrants just so appealing to us? Why are we drawn to them? And even though we are horrified by their actions, we can't get enough of them. My goal for this video is to break down the essential qualities, traits, and certain characteristics of our favorite villains, and just what makes them the perfect antagonist to our protagonist. It's much more than a villain seemingly just looking cool or being able to kick Superman's ass. No, there's definitely more depth to a lot of the greatest of great bad guys out there. So, without further ado,
And here we go.
So, just what is a villain? The villain in a story is typically the antagonist to the hero, though in rare instances, the villain can be both the antagonist and protagonist.
Don't know who you're talking to, so let me clue you in. I am not in danger, Skylar. I am the danger. A guy opens his door and gets shot, and you think that of me? No. I am the one who knocks.
They tend to represent the biggest hurdle that our hero must overcome in order to better themselves or accomplish their primary goal. When examining a villain, one of the chief defining characteristics is that you get them. You understand where their motivations come from, why with every fiber of their being they despise the hero and everything that he stands for. It's much more than a bad guy who's sitting in a corner twirling his mustache while cackling and rubbing his hands together. One prime example of this is Khan from Wrath of Khan. 15 years prior to the events in Wrath of Khan, the Enterprise discovered Khan's ship adrift in space. You see, Kirk had originally exiled Khan and his fellow Supermen to SETI Alpha 5 after they had attempted to take over the Enterprise. After they were marooned, SETI Alpha 6 exploded, shifting the orbit of SETI Alpha 5 and destroying its ecosystem. Khan ends up blaming Kirk for the death of his wife and plans his revenge. Right off the bat, we understand the character. Yes, Khan did try to take over the Enterprise, and because of that he was marooned on a planet, but because of Kirk's actions, Khan ends up losing his wife. You may not agree with all the actions that Khan takes, but you understand why he is angry and why he seeks out revenge against Kirk, even if it wasn't directly his fault. Another great example of a villain that you just get is Magneto. A concentration camp victim, Magneto has seen some of the worst actions and atrocities that humanity has ever committed. His life experiences and the things that he saw while he was in Nazi Germany are so intertwined into the character, so part of his moral code, that it leads the character to proclaim mutants are the dominant species, and if they don't take action, humans will destroy them because of the fact that they are different. While we may not agree with Magneto's proclamation of mutants being more dominant, we understand that because of all the horrendous things that he went through as a child, he would become the man that he is today. It's the relatability that draws us into the character, and the fact that he was once a sympathetic young child that grew into a powerful mutant that would challenge the ideals of Charles Xavier. When examining villains as a whole, they tend to have at least one or more chief characteristics that make them greater than their hero. There must be an innate challenge that the hero must overcome, otherwise there is no tension, no sense of drama. When Superman faces off against a gang of thugs with guns, we're not nervous for Superman because, well, we know that they can't really hurt him. However, when Superman faces off against the likes of Darkseid, we immediately start feeling the tension, the nervousness, that sense of dread. Will Superman be enough to take down what is essentially the equivalent to a god? Will Darkseid stop Superman? Can Superman win? These are the thoughts that pass through our mind whether we realize it or not. It's these same thoughts that make up what is essentially the greatest rogues gallery in all of DC Comics. Batman's. They say that the greater the hero, the greater the villain, and that really doesn't apply any more than to Batman's rogues gallery. Batman is simply a man that has honed his body to peak physical conditions, and he's got a really big checkbook. The other members of the Rogues Gallery have powers ranging from ice to super strength to borderline invincibility, and yet Batman still manages to overcome them and beat them. Simply put, it's the fact that Batman is simply human and is facing such overwhelming odds that make this character so great. Another great example of the greater the hero, the greater the villain is Voldemort. After years and 6 whole Harry Potter books of hearing how terrifying the character is and all the actions that he has committed, we finally get to see him go up against Harry in book 7. It's this background information that leads us to not only hate the character, but to fear him, and when the eventual climactic fight goes down between Harry and Voldemort, you realize just how big of a threat Harry is up against. I mentioned earlier that we learned to hate the character of Voldemort through all of his actions across the 7 Harry Potter books. However, Voldemort is a great example of a character that is more than a device to move the story forward. He is also a person as well. Giving villains human qualities is essential in creating a truly great antagonist. We get hints of Voldemort's backstory throughout the books, and we come to find out that he was once a student of Hogwarts, an orphan, and his mother died while giving birth to him. It's these little touches that serve to humanize him despite the fact that we hate him. There seems to be a common problem today in that far too many works of fiction, the antagonist is nothing more than a slight stumbling block for the main protagonist. The villains are short-sighted, they don't really have clear motivation, and they lack really any goals. A villain should be more than that. They should be human, real. Giving villains human qualities is essential in creating a truly great antagonist. One of the best examples of this is Dr. Freeze. Dr. Freeze is arguably one of the most tragic figures in all of comics, beginning as nothing more than a gimmick comic book antagonist in the Silver Age. Writer Paul Dini breathed new life into the character in the Batman the Animated Series episode Heart of Ice. In the episode, Batman discovers Freeze began life as Dr. Victor Freeze, a scientist who specialized in cryogenics. Freeze's wife Nora had contracted a terminal disease, and Freeze, using money he had embezzled from a science experiment the company had hired him for, cryogenically froze her so that he could search for a cure while she waited. After going over budget, the CEO discovers Freeze's embezzlement and pulls the plug on Nora, leaving her to die from her illness. When Freeze tries to stop him, he gets knocked into a bunch of chemicals which leave him in a state where his body cannot survive out of sub-zero temperatures, hence the freeze suit. When combining the death of his wife with being wronged by a corporation, it's easy to see why Freeze would go a bit nutty and turn to a life of crime, and it also helps to ground the character in reality, humanizing him through this understanding. Having said all this, there's one particular character that has seemingly defied conventional villain tropes. Of course, I'm talking about the Joker. Ah yes, the Joker. What villain examination wouldn't be complete without Batman's ultimate bad guy? The Joker is an interesting one because his appeal stems from shock value and waiting to see what happens next. It's this unpredictability that makes him such a strong fan favorite. On top of that, we don't really know what his origin story is. We've gotten glimpses of what may be his origin in the classic Alan Moore graphic novel The Killing Joke, but we've never had a definitive story since the Joker in The Killing Joke says himself that if he were to have an origin story, he would prefer for it to be multiple choice. What strikes me so fascinating about this character is just how flexible he is. Because the Joker has no real origin story, different writers throughout the years have been able to mold different character traits and personalities to him. In one incarnation, he could be a homicidal clown prince of crime, and in another, he could be a terrifying monster that is literally in love with Batman and has his face taken off.
His face?
One thing is for certain though, the Joker represents that unbridled sense of lunacy that is inside all of us. The potential to lose control of ourselves all because of one bad day, and the fact that any single person could one day become the villain in their own story. After all, madness is the emergency exit. Hey guys, just wanted to say thank you so much for checking out this video. I hope you got something out of it and it was informative as well. This was super fun for me to do, but like I say, it is a labor of love and there is a lot of labor. So if you feel so inclined, please consider donating to my Patreon. It's going to be found in the description. Big shout out to Philip Evans, my newest Patreon subscriber. Thank you so much, man. It's really appreciated. And yeah, check out some of my other videos, guys. Please like, subscribe, comment, and if you feel so inclined, check out my Facebook and Twitter. It's found in the description. Love you guys. Have a great week.